Thank you. Thanks for inviting me today, and it's good to be here. Before I became an MP, I was an investment banker for 19 years, so I'll speak with a bit of that experience as well. But I will say that during my election campaign, I did begin to think that being an investment banker was the worst profession you could have. But that was, of course, before I actually got elected. So things do feel a bit different now. And this budget, actually, I thought, I saw one of the headlines I saw this morning, and I thought really summed it up in an amusing way, but it was actually, I felt it was quite accurate. I think it was the Telegraph, if I'm not mistaken, and they said that it's fueling the economy, but potholes lie ahead. And it really hit the three major things. I think the fuel word, this was a budget that recognized that cost of living is a real issue for people out there. In the economy, it's about trying to promote growth even more so than other policies the government's implemented thus far. And potholes lie ahead. There are risks ahead, and I thought in my few minutes that I've got, if I stick to these two or three themes. First of all, the potholes. So I actually think that is the most important, because when we're analysing this budget, I think we have to think about what's the background that goes into making these decisions and the backdrop the government has to deal with. The biggest potholes, I think, are international at the moment, and given the size of our economy, our role in the global economy, clearly we're not insulated from them in any way. First, the Eurozone. I think the Eurozone crisis is by no means over. As we were speaking in the debate yesterday, Portugal was having a parliamentary test itself. You've seen that their Prime Minister has resigned. They failed to get their austerity package through. Now, following Greece and Ireland, I think Portugal will be bailed out in the next few days. And it just shows you that that whole crisis in the Eurozone is going to continue for a while. And once Portugal is bailed out, because it will, in quotes, successfully be bailed out, because relatively it's a smaller economy, the markets will turn to Spain, and that's really the big one. And what happens with Spain is, I think, will have a knock-on impact on us. And there are some commentators that say that Spain is too critical and it can still be bailed out even given its size. But I'm not so sure. The total debt exposure of European banks to the peripheral EU countries is about 1.5 trillion euros. And if just these peripheral countries were either to default formally or informally on their debts denominated in euros, that's let's say about a 25% devaluation or a 25% loss. That is such a big loss for the banking system in Europe, because they're trading at about a 1-to-1 book value to actual market value. And the loss in terms of billions would be such a big loss that I don't think any of the banking systems will be able to sustain it in any of the major European countries without government bailouts. And given what's already happened, I'm not sure if many of the governments are in a position to carry out further bailout. So that is, I think, just one to watch, and something that is a big issue out there, which really consolidates why we need to continue with the fiscal austerity plan and prepare for perhaps even bigger problems internationally. Also, internationally, the emerging markets are cooling down substantially. World growth output since the onset of the credit crisis from about the end of 2007 until 2010, during that period has actually reached the same level it was, I think at the beginning of this year, it reached the same level in terms of total global output that it was 3 years ago. But about 80% of that growth has actually come from emerging markets, particularly China and India. Both those countries, and you can add Brazil as well to that as a major growing market, they're all overheating. Interest rates rising in all three countries, and demand is starting to fall in all countries. India's got a bigger set of problems with big corruption issues going on, which is also having an impact on growth. And I don't think the impact of these on us can be underestimated as well, and so I think that's something to keep an eye on. And the last sort of global macro situation, which has already hit us at home probably a bit harder, is global inflation. Obviously, we've seen the RPI numbers at 5.5%, and if we should put those in some kind of context historically, I think it's correct to say the last time inflation or RPI was at that level was in 1991. In 1991, our short-term interest rates were about 8.5% versus where they are today. So we've almost always historically had real returns from an interest rate point of view, whether short-term or long-term, if you take a sort of historical average. And now we're in a very unusual situation where we have very real negative returns. Our 5-year gilt today is around 2.35%, and in 1991 our 5-year gilt was trading at about 10.3%. So last time inflation was at this level, gilts were at 10.3%, today they're at 2.3%. And that shows you just how fragile the bond market investors are at a time when we're still relying on them to sell over 150 billion pounds of gilts a year, certainly this year and a similar amount next year. And if those markets were to wake up one day and think differently, then I think that could have quite a dramatic impact on our ability to finance ourselves. So I think these things are very important. I don't have much time left, so maybe I can pick up some things and questions. In terms of promoting growth with this budget, I actually, for me, I thought the most interesting things were around the planning changes. I too don't have enough detail on them all yet, and I think there's going to be some further announcements coming from the Communities Department. But if there truly is a presumption for development, sustainable development, I think that's a big change for developers. If the planning permission is going to be given within a 1-year time limit, that I think will make a big change because it gives more of a sort of cost and certainty to some developers in their approach to planning permission. And also, if just something like making the change of use of existing buildings easier from commercial, residential, or vice versa, I think that makes a difference. And clearly, the corporation tax decrease was welcome as a signal for Britain. It's at least one rate that we can show to the rest of the world as amongst one of the lowest in the world in the direction it's going. And then the last point I'd add on growth is that really a lot of the policies around growth were done way before this budget, and they're going to be implemented clearly over the longer term, but they've already started, which is the changes in the education system and the kind of things our children are educated in, the kinds of things they focus on greater apprenticeships. I think the Chancellor mentioned that Germany, 1 in 4 people do apprenticeships, young people. In Britain, it's 1 in 10 at the moment. I think these kind of things can make a difference. And then also, I think something that Philip had alluded to, changes in welfare system and number of people on out of work benefits, over 5 million today, and having a system where we can make sure that they're all better off taking jobs rather than staying on benefit. Thank you.